He may wish he could talk about anything other than health care. Polls may tell his staff that they should talk about other things besides health care. But until the website works and enrollment becomes more reliable, he's stuck. He'll look silly trying to talk about anything else, be it the economy or immigration, because his credibility on other issues is being called into question now, so he might as well treat health care like it's the only issue on his plate. Well, my next guest says the perceived problems with health care reform are actually essential mechanisms built into the law to make it work. The law was designed to force some policies to be canceled. I'm joined now by one of the primary architects of both the Massachusetts Health Care Reform and the Affordable Care Act, Professor of Economics at MIT, Jonathan Gruber. Mr. Gruber, Professor Gruber, good morning, sir.
Good to be here.
Now, you have been quoted in numerous places as saying this idea of fixing this issue for those on the individual market or getting these policy cancellations of policies they'd like to keep, saying going down that road is actually a road that could potentially unravel the law. Explain this to me.
Sure. Let's start with understanding that we're not talking about the vast majority of Americans. This law is really leaving those with employer insurance, those with government insurance alone. We're talking about a small minority of Americans that buy insurance on their own through the individual market.
It's still millions.
40%.
Still millions of people.
Exactly. It's 12 million people, about a third of which will end up paying more under this law. And that, as you said in the introduction, is sort of the idea. We currently have a highly discriminatory system where if you're sick, if you've been sick, if you're going to get sick, you cannot get health insurance. The only way to end that discriminatory system is to bring everyone into the system and pay one fair price. That means that the genetic winners, the lottery winners, who'd been paying an artificially low price because of this discrimination, now will have to pay more. In return, and that, by my estimate, is about 4 million people. In return, we'll have a fixed system where over 30 million people will now, for the first time, be able to access fairly priced and guaranteed health insurance.
So, politics sometimes trumps policy and logic. You've got how you believe the law was supposed to be designed. Obviously, this political train may be leaving the station, and there may not be a lot to do about it. So of the various ideas that are out there, are any one better than the other in your view as to not sort of undo the law the way you described that it could be undone?
Sure. There's a clear solution that doesn't undo the law, which is you could offer what we could call transitional tax credits to those who are affected by this law. You could say, look, some people will pay more. We're upset about that. So what we'll do is, even though they're above 4 times poverty, so they're not getting the tax credits that are in the law, we'll offer special 1- or 2-year tax credits to help smooth that transition. The problem with that solution is that will require a Congress that's willing to cooperate, which this Congress isn't.
Well, that's something we've learned. I want to talk about enrollment. We've got some estimates that have come out. We expect sometime this week the official estimates from the administration. What you've seen and the numbers that you know about, we're sitting on, obviously it's lower than what's necessary. Going forward at 100,000 enrollees, going forward, what are you looking for? What is the importance of, say, December 15th during this 6-month enrollment period?
It's a great question. And look, this is new territory, but we do have the experience of Massachusetts to point to, which went through a similar transition. We found in the first month, 0.3% of the people ultimately enrolled in the first month. If you take the numbers that people are throwing around now of 100,000, that's about 1.3% of the 7 million target that the Congressional Budget Office laid out.
So you're saying that's better than expected?
At least as well as Massachusetts. But the bottom line is it's too early. A, it's too early to say. B, it's not really the numbers that matter so much as ultimately the health mix. Are we getting in young and healthy people? And what we know from Massachusetts is those people will come in last. They're going to come in the early spring as that individual mandate deadline approaches. We saw in Massachusetts it was only once the mandate sort of bit that all of a sudden you saw a lot of young, healthy people come into the system. So I think it's just too early to make any evaluations. So you think the March 15th, March 31st, that territory, that should be that's when we should be looking to see if enrollment's been a success or not? I think we cannot, I'll be stronger than that. We can simply not evaluate the success or failure of enrollment before that date. Are you, everything you're hearing about what's people that have been enrolling, are you concerned about any of these trends, or do you think that everything here is going as exactly as expected as Massachusetts experienced? Well, I'm obviously concerned the website isn't working. I don't think it's a crisis yet. As I said, the main thing is to get the website working in time for people to meet that individual mandate. Otherwise, it's just too early. I mean, I realize we want numbers to pay attention to, and that would be great. But the truth is, it's just too early to say anything useful. And I think, unfortunately, the negative news about the website has sort of drowned out the fact that we should just be calm and let this play out. And if we do, I think that we'll be in a very good position by March.
Are you concerned that all of the negative portrayals and the perception that the website isn't working now and may not work on December 1st, as the administration would like to see, that will tamp down enrollment, that will drive people away from even going to the website?
I think that absolutely is a concern. As I said, Chuck, it's really, if it tamps down enormously, that's a problem. Even if it tamps it down some, as long as the mix is what insurers expected. Insurers have in mind some mix of healthy and not healthy. As long as the mix comes in where insurers expected, they'll be able to meet the goals they set with their very low rates, and we won't suffer rate shock next year.
And if Congress does end up changing this law to figure out a way, and it isn't tax credits, the impact on the law, do you think this will then undermine it, that this will keep young and healthy people from being in the exchanges?
I think it could significantly undermine it. It obviously depends on what Congress does. There's a range of options. There's sort of a short-term option that could grandfather people for a couple months or extend the open enrollment period for a couple months. That would not have an enormous effect. They could do what the Landrieu bill proposes and grandfather people for a year. I think that could have a very serious negative effect, but we'll have to see. It depends how many people choose to stay grandfather versus come in. The real disaster would be the Upton bill. That's just clearly a horrible approach which is designed purely to undermine the law by not only grandfathering, but allowing these horrible uncomprehensive plans to continue into next year. There's absolutely no argument for that other than to just undermine the goals of the Affordable Care Act.
All right, Jonathan Gruber, I got to leave it there. One of the architects both here of Massachusetts law and, of course, of the Affordable Care Act itself. Mr. Gruber, you're becoming a familiar face to a lot of people. Thanks for coming on.